Hello and welcome to Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. I'm Becky Parker Geist and I'm your host. Audiobook Connection is your place to learn about the audiobook creative process and for authors to learn valuable tips on producing and marketing your audiobooks. This podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Today, I want to ask you a question. Why might you want to have an audio version of your book? There are lots of reasons, right? Anything from using the same content to generate more revenue, to connecting with your audience, to, setting yourself up as someone who shows up professionally in the indie publishing realm. There are lots of reasons why you might want to have an audiobook. But I want to focus in on one area of that, and that is about connection. When you are reaching your audience and connecting with them, actually connecting with them during or after they listen to your audiobook, what might that mean for them and for you? So I'm Becky Parker Geist. I'm the host of Audiobook Connection, and I'm glad that you're here with me today. There are many ways that we talk about how to connect, and I want to focus in on a few areas. Initially, I want to talk about pre-production and how the work that you do during pre-production can increase the potential for your listener and you to connect on a deeper level and to connect with more of a long-term engagement kind of relationship. All right. So where they're following what you're doing, they may be purchasing your other books or coaching programs or whatever it is that you are doing out there in the world. So in pre-production is when we're looking at the text that you have created for your audiobook, and we're thinking about how you can leverage that content so that you can move closer towards your goals. Now, in your audiobook, there are, obviously there's such an incredible range of possibilities for content here. So I'm not going to be able to touch on each one. So I want to give sort of a light brush stroke, if you will, on a few ways that I might suggest that you could use during pre-production for different kinds of content so that you can hopefully be inspired on ways that you can work with your own content. So one of those is working with visuals. If you have visuals in your audiobook, these are opportunities, not problems. Because they are creating a different way to relate to your audience and a different way for your audience to be able to understand the content that you have in your book, they're an opportunity for you to invite your listener to come visit your website where they might see not only the visual that they can't otherwise see in your audiobook, but also they'll find out more about you and your other books, etc. Now, there's another really cool thing that's coming very, very soon. We are in the works and rolling this feature out, but there is also another way that you can utilize your visuals later in the distribution and marketing part of the process. So I'm just going to mention that now. We'll come back to it later in this episode. Again, these visuals are one way that you can draw together, come together closer with your potential audience, or with your listeners, really. Not your potential audience, but your actual audience. Okay. Another way is thinking about things like a sneak preview at the end of your audiobook, where you're giving them a taste of another one of your titles. Maybe it's the next book in a series. Maybe it's some other standalone book that is designed for the same target audience. When we do that, again, we are creating an opportunity, a way for your listener to come closer to you and to be more engaged with you. Similarly, with a bonus interview, now, especially if you're you're not the narrator of your own project, then here is a way in which they can hear your voice, get a sense of who you are, hear you talking about your book and your experience. And this is a really powerful way to help your listeners become more comfortable with you and more interested in you as you get to know each other, right? It's another way to get to know you. So those are just a couple things I want to mention. There's one other actually in the pre-production phase that can be really valuable, and that is the about the author. The about the author is really providing a little bit extra information, your bio, obviously, but it's more detail or sort of bringing people back to who are you? Even if you, for example, have done a memoir where they learn more, really deeply about you, coming together at the end with a brief reminder of who you are and what you're up to in the world now is really good. So those are just a few things that we might consider in the pre-production phase, thinking about how can we draw together, make this connection. I want to take a moment to tell you why this has become so forefront for me. I've been traveling across the country, back and forth between the coasts, going to different author and publisher events. And one of the things that is really jumping out at me is how many stories I have heard of people, authors, who have found that when they show up at a live event, like a con or a book launch or a reading somewhere, when they show up in person, their potential audience shows up as well, meaning that they find that they sell books. They're selling their stuff when people meet them in person. And I keep hearing this again and again. I've some authors who say that, their online sales might be doing practically nothing, but they go to these events and they're earning enough to live on for the year. Okay, so there is something really powerful to that, and I think it all comes down to this question of connection. When we're deeply connecting with people, this is something we need so much, especially these days when there's so much like AI and virtual this and online that. Yes, because we are so spread out around the world and want to be able to connect even when we're not physically able to connect in person, the idea that we get to know each other in some way, the more we can get to know each other, the deeper that connection is, and the more likely your potential audience will show up to engage with you and with your content. So now I want to just jump ahead a little bit into not the production. I'm going to skip over the production phase, and I want to talk about the distribution and marketing phase of your project. So your audiobook is complete. You've paid attention to pre-production and have really factored in how you can build an audiobook asset that is not only a great listening experience for your listeners, but also an enticing invitation to get to know you better. Now, how do we take it from that point into distribution and marketing in such a way that your audience will stay with you and be able to communicate with you? See, a big part of the problem has been that once we go into this distribution phase and our audiobooks are out there in the world on these different platforms, we're cut off from the very information that we most need. And that is, who are our customers? Who are the people who are listening to our audiobooks? Yes, we can see reviews, but can we reach out to those people and connect with them? No. You see, so there's really something missing. And recognizing that, we set about to fix that problem. And so that is what is rolling out currently on AMPlify Audiobooks. So AMPlify Audiobooks is a direct sale platform. It is designed for each author or publisher to be able to sell their audiobooks directly within the context of a store, but without the blockades that are put in between rights holder and customer in typical standard retail platforms. So what we're doing here is it's quite revolutionary. It really is a game changer. There is nothing quite like it out there in the world except for AMPlify Audiobooks. And here's the part that is especially cool. We have built-in ways for a listener, when they're listening to an audiobook, imagine, if you will, that you have a journal that is right next to you as you're listening. And as you listen, you might want to just jot a note as, that was, or some reflection that you have about what you're listening to, or maybe a question pops up. You're listening and you think, I wish I could ask the author this question, or the narrator. I wish I could ask the narrator this question. Well, now that is possible because on the AMPlify Audiobooks platform, as you're listening, the customer is listening, they can post a reflection, which is sort of like an online journal, if you will. They can keep it private if that's what they prefer, but they could also make it public to the people who are on the platform, to the community. And the beautiful thing about that is that now you as the author can find out that you can see what is moving your audience. You can find out what are those moments that are especially touching. You can find out which scenes are your listeners' favorites. There's a lot of information you can gather, but what I think is the cooler thing is that you're actually, through the shared experience of your audiobook, you are building a deeper connection with each of your listeners. And the listeners are also able, they can choose whether they want to see other people's reflections or not, again, if they're public. But you can see the community's reflections as well. So it's almost like a book club, but I'm going to come back to book clubs in a second. It's almost like a book club in that you can see what other people, there's like a discussion, if you will, about the audiobook as you go through it. Now, if you're thinking, wait a minute, how's that going to affect my listening experience? Well, it is not something you have to pay attention to in the moment. It's something that is available to you. And it's like a door opening up into community. And that is the way in which I think of it, a little bit like an audiobook club. But here's the thing. Actually, before we get into this, I want to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of the other really cool ways that we are able to connect authors, narrators, listeners, with all those folks with each other around the shared experience of audiobooks. We'll be right back. Stay with me. Okay, real talk. What if your audiobook platform actually helped you sell your audiobook? Actually helped you. Like email templates and tools, promo campaigns, discount codes, listener insights, ways to connect with other authors for cross promotions, and to connect with listeners, where you can host events or even run an audiobook club with a built-in community that's excited to discover new voices. That's AMPlify Audiobooks. You see, it's not just a place to list your audiobook in hopes of a transaction. No, it's a place to market it, to grow your audience, and actually connect with listeners who care. You can run promotions, engage your fans, and be part of a creative community that's all about lifting up indie authors and small publishers, not burying them in an algorithm somewhere. And yeah, you'll also earn 2 to 4 times more royalties than the usual platforms. How about that? So if you're ready to stop whispering into the void and start building real momentum, head over to AMPlifyAudiobooks.com. Amplify Audiobooks, where your stories don't just live, they thrive. Okay, so here are some other really cool features that are coming online, becoming live on Amplify Audiobooks. We are very much in the beta rollout phase right now, so please bear with us. If you see something that looks, like it's not quite right, it might be that it's in the process of being fixed. But we are so excited to have this available and we want to make sure that it is the platform that is really serving the community. And the best way we can do that is to get your feedback on it. Okay. Anyway, so one of the features that I want to talk about next is about events. So as you know, we as authors, we frequently will do a book launch event. Or we might do some other, it might be a Q&A event, a discussion of some kind. It might be focused around a particular point or topic or theme within your audiobook or your book. Those are great. And now, through Amplify Audiobooks, you will actually be able to host these calls, these events right in the platform. One of the cool things is, of course, that the notification about the event, so the events will show up on the platform for people who are looking for activities, online events that they would like to attend that are related to books and audiobooks. So that is really opening up using the platform to open up to a broader audience when you host events. Now, and you can host any kind of book-related event, as long as it's related to your content that's on the platform. Okay, another really cool feature, and also event-related, is the recurring event of an audiobook or book club. We tend to think of book clubs as times when we are real people meeting in real time. Sometimes we're meeting in person, sometimes we're meeting online. And that is exactly what we're doing with the Amplify Audiobooks book clubs. There are other platforms that will list on their websites book clubs, but really all it is a curated list of, based on a genre. It's not a book club because there's no meeting. There's no people who are actually gathering together. So they're misusing, I think, that term, and it's a little misleading, or at the very least, disappointing if you're expecting something like a real book club. But here on Amplify Audiobooks, you will have access to real book clubs. As an author, you can host or co-host a book club, and there will, at points in the future, as we roll out, we will find other ways that we can, enable listeners, for example, to host book clubs. And so there are different kinds of tools that are coming online, but I think it's so exciting to be able to have the opportunity to gather in these ways and to build our audiences like real people. The Amplify Audiobooks platform is not just about transactions or sales. It's about people. That is the primary focus, building the community, a community that we need so desperately. So I hope that you will join us. Again, our focus for this episode has been about connection. So join us on Amplify Audiobooks. Start for free. Just go to amplifyaudiobooks.com. In the upper right, there is a sign up button, and it's always free to start. So I hope that you will be with us. There are some free books on the platform. The pricing of the books is always in the control of the authors. Always. That's the point. Leaving these important decisions and controls in the hands of the rights holders, the people who really should be in control of those things. And we will also be rolling out, I don't know exactly how soon, but we will be rolling out a very cool subscriber program that will not in any way harm the royalties or the authors who are, for the audiobooks being sold. On other platforms, the harm is real because basically what those platforms are doing is they're saying that if you subscribe to our platform, then we're going to give you typically one audiobook a month. And yes, the authors will receive some royalties from that, although there are also cases where if you become a subscriber with the teaser of a free audiobook at the start, some platforms won't pay the authors any royalties on those, as wrong as that is. And some will, and that's right. On AMPlify Audiobooks, the authors are always in control of the pricing, always in control, so they know exactly what their royalties are. Typically, those are 2 to 4 times what the exact same audiobook would sell for on another platform. So we're trying to really make a difference in the lives of authors and those who love audiobooks as well. Because in our view, when authors thrive and audiobook listeners thrive, and we can all come together as community, we're doing a good thing in the world. I hope you'll be a part of it. Thanks for joining me today on this episode about connection. Thanks for joining us for Audiobook Connection, behind the scenes with the creative teams. Please take a moment to subscribe at audiobookconnection.com. The podcast is sponsored by Pro Audio Voices, helping great stories come alive through audiobook production and marketing. Learn more at proaudiovoices.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and please join us next week.